What is up, my party people? Alrighty, welcome to the first ever episode of Podcasting with the Hawg. Today, I am the Hawg, Austin Mativier, and it's draft day, boys. It's finally here. The one day a year where every team has hope. Every team. There's seven new rounds of hope. No matter what draft pick, if you're seventh round, you still got hope. You still got a chance to make the team. Everyone's happy. So today we are going to be doing a first round mock draft. My final mock draft of it right before we get into the draft. At number 1, everyone knows the Cincinnati Bengals are going to go Joe Burrow first overall. It's set in stone. People want to talk about how the Bengals are going to overhype this and maybe flip or take Chase Young. I don't see them doing that. I think Joe Burrow, the whole season, everyone knew he was number 1, greatest college quarterback in history, 60 touchdowns. He has to go number 1. I mean, Bengals don't mess this up. Joe Burrow's going to be a franchise quarterback. And at number 2, I'm having the Washington Redskins select Chase Young out of Ohio State. Chase Young is as dominant edge as you can get in this draft. He's probably the number 1 on pure talent. And I think this kid is going to be day 1 top 5 in the league. This kid has a whole lot of potential, whole lot of talent, and he's still growing at the age he is. And now as we get into pick number 3, I have the Detroit Lions selecting Jeffrey Okudah out of Ohio State. His buddy Chase Young got drafted a pick before him. I think he goes off the board right after him. This is another thing that throughout the season you've heard Detroit Lions Jeff Okudah talk. I mean, at this point it's kind of set in stone. And in this mock draft, however, I'm not allowed to make trades. So it is just if this is at their set pick. However, I could see the Lions maybe trading down a few picks to get later picks or to get picks for next year's draft. Just because Jeffrey Okudah, however, he is a great talent. Is he number 3 overall pick? They could probably get him later in the first or top 10 or later even farther down. And at pick number 4, this is the first pick that I really wasn't sure with what would happen. The New York Giants, they look to take Isaiah Simmons, who is going to be an extremely dominant defensive player in the league, or are they going to take an offensive lineman to help with Daniel Jones, get him his number 1 offensive lineman, his number 1 pass blocker, his best bud, and another hog. And that is actually exactly what we have the New York Giants taking here at number 4 overall. I think they take Jedrick Wills out of Alabama. I mean, he's a Bama guy, Saban guy. You can't go wrong with Bama guys. I mean, every year it seems like they're in the top 5 picks. They're top 5 offensive linemen off the board. I mean, it just seems like day in, day out, they're good starters. They'll be a day 1 starter. They'll be a set it and forget it type starter, and he'll be a top offensive lineman in the league for many years to come. And with Jedrick Wills, I actually think he's probably the best offensive lineman out of this draft. I think in terms of pure size, talent, and everything, he's got it all right now. And I think that's why they would take him over guys like Tristan Wilfs, who are kind of a smaller school Iowa guy. But, I mean, you got to go with Bama. Speaking of Bama, and that is why we have number 5 overall, the Miami Dolphins are taking Tua Tagovailoa. Tagovailoa, quarterback out of Alabama. This is something that I can just see happening. I mean, the tank for Tua movement, that was started by the Miami Dolphins. Everyone thought they were trying to lose games purposely just so they could end up with Tua. And they ended up winning a few games down out the season, so they dropped in draft order. But they're still able to select their guy at number 5 without trading up and losing any first-round picks for the future. I think that's a no-brainer. I think they don't even question it. They take it. Moving into pick number 6, I have my 3rd quarterback coming off the board, and Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert, quarterback out of Oregon, pretty fantastic season a couple years ago. he would have come out of the draft last year after his junior year, everyone was talking about how he would have been a top 5 pick, probably would have been one of the first quarterbacks taken off the board. However, he decided to come back for his senior year, and things didn't go the way he planned. He didn't have the talent around him that he needed, and things didn't work out, but he's still top 10 right here and third quarterback off the board. I mean, the Chargers just got rid of Phil Rivers. Yeah, they have Tyrod Taylor, and they say they're confident in him. But, I mean, at number 6, this is a franchise quarterback. You can't pass up on this type of talent. It's one of them things that they just got to go with. And moving farther down into number 7, I have the Carolina Panthers selecting Derek Brown out of Auburn. Derek Brown is considerably the best interior D lineman out of this draft. Just a complete animal. I mean, he had a lot of good games at Auburn and is going to be a top-tier D lineman for Carolina, who has a very big need at inside defensive lineman, and I can't really see him going away from this pick. I think this is a really good fit for him, and I just think it works. Going into pick number 8, I got CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver at Oklahoma. This is actually my surprise pick because everyone's talking about how CeeDee Lamb's going to fall, the Cardinals are going to take an offensive tackle. However, if recently it has come out that said Kyler Murray's pushing for them to take CeeDee Lamb. And I think if you're Arizona, you don't want to go against your franchise quarterback. And if he wants his number one guy, his receiver, his main man, I think that's someone you have to kind of target and go get. I mean, it's fallen to you at number 8. You haven't traded up. You don't have to worry about it. Just take it, make your quarterback happy. And there's plenty of offensive tackle talent in this draft. Another guy they can look is Ezra Cleveland right out of the second. I mean, he's a very good talent, and he's probably going to fall that late. Maybe guys like Austin Jackson or Josh Jones trade back up into the first round. We'll see, but I think they take CeeDee Lamb to make their quarterback happy. Coming in at pick number 9, the Jacksonville Jaguars. I have them selecting Isaiah Simmons, linebacker out of Clemson. With this, I mean, it's one of them things where they may not have the biggest need in linebacker, but when a guy like Isaiah Simmons falls to you at number 9, you really can't pass up on that. That is a guy that's going to carry your defense and just be that stout defense piece for many years. And it's just too good of talent to pass up this late in the top 10. And closing out the top 10, I have the Cleveland Browns selecting Tristan Wirfs, offensive tackle out of Iowa. With this, a lot of people link them to Mekhi Becton. However, with Mekhi Becton's sample coming out, the faulty sample and with all that at the NFL Combine, I actually think this raises a lot of red flags for the Cleveland Browns. Because if you think about it, we look at Greg Robinson or Kareem Hunt or Josh Gordon or Johnny Manziel. They've dealt with the history of guys who have they say, oh, we'll take the risk on them. They're worth the risk. And it keeps biting them over and over again. And I think that's actually why they move away from Becton. And they take Tristan Wirfs, a really good offensive line talent, probably top 3 in this draft. I think they're a little upset they couldn't get Wills from Bama, and he went so high with the Giants. But, I mean, this is a great offensive tackle. It's going to be their number one guy to go with Baker for many years. I mean, he's a stout offensive tackle. He's a day one starter. I mean, there's no better pick at number 10 than a nice fellow Hawg. And continue the Hawg train rolling. We got the New York Jets selecting offensive tackle Andrew Thomas out of Georgia. Andrew Thomas is another one of those guys who is just a mean, gnarly offensive tackle, and he just puts you right flat on your back. I think Andrew Thomas is going to be an incredible steal for the Jets at number 11. I think they're going to be incredibly happy with that. And just like the Browns ahead of them who are selecting their offensive tackle for their quarterback, they're doing the same thing. They got to protect Darnold. They want to keep him healthy, keep him in there. They don't want him seeing ghosts. We all know how that turned out. And I think this is a great move to help better their franchise quarterback and help him look even better and continue his growth. And at number 12, I have the Oakland Raiders selecting Henry Ruggs III, wide receiver out of Alabama. See, this is a pick I wasn't sure which way to fall between Jerry Jeudy and Henry Ruggs, both Bama teammates, but I ended up going with Henry Ruggs because John Gruden's he loves that fast receiver. He loves that absolute dart. Just going back to the classic Oakland Raiders, the classic throwbacks. This is just a good fit for them. I don't see them going any other way, and I think that's a great pick for them for this year and for many years to come. And going into pick number 13, the San Francisco 49ers select Jerry Jeudy, wide receiver out of Alabama. His teammate, Henry Ruggs, just went ahead of him, and there he goes off the board. Fills a need for the San Francisco 49ers, who just lost Emmanuel Sanders. They're bringing in Jerry Jeudy, who may be just the same talent-wise and is a lot younger and now is on a 5-year cheaper contract. Can't go wrong upgrading like that, and I just think that's something that they're extremely happy with. They didn't have to move up and still got a really good receiver for Jimmy G, who they may look to trade, actually. They may look to bring in another quarterback because I've heard they're not quite confident in how Jimmy G is playing. In Tampa Bay, the Tom Brady Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They just bring in Gronk for a 4th-round draft pick. Man, this is a crazy offense right here. There's not many holes, but one of the holes, a pretty big one, is another Hawg position offensive tackle. This is where I think we'll see Mekhi Becton come off the board. I think because of his sample, he fell to 14. However, I still think this is a really good pick for him. You can't pass up on him. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean he broke the rules. He's not going to get suspended for him. It's not going to affect him playing. It's just something you got to worry about, but I don't think it's as big as a risk as people are talking about. So that's why I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers take him at 14. And now that CeeDee Lamb, Henry Ruggs, and Jerry Jeudy are off the board, this is where I think teams start to get a little worried that they're not going to get their receiver guy, and they're not going to get that guy they want. And that's why I think the Denver Broncos, instead of taking cornerback C.J. Henderson out of Florida, I think they're going to go with Justin Jefferson, wide receiver out of LSU. He's been a first-round talent throughout this draft process. He had a great combine. I mean, this kid, LSU, big name, worked right with Joe Burrow all season. He's going to be a good receiver. Is this maybe a little too early for me? I would say so, but I think they got nervous that wide receivers are going off the board, and they wanted to get their guy, their wide receiver. So that's why I think they decided to take Justin Jefferson here instead of going with a cornerback or any other positions they may need. And speaking of C.J. Henderson, I have him coming off the board at number 16 to the Atlanta Falcons. C.J. Henderson coming out of Florida has been getting an extreme amount of hype lately. Some prospects even say they think that he's their number one corner over Jeff Okudah. I think this is an incredible steal and talent-wise. I mean, I think anyone would be happy to get a guy like C.J. Henderson way down at 16. I think he's going to fill right in for the hole that cornerback that the Falcons have, and he's going to fill in right in for Trufant. He's going to be a day one starter. He's going to be top in the league eventually. I mean, that's a good pick for them. And moving forward, we have the Dallas Cowboys selecting Clavon Chassian, edge rusher out of LSU. I've heard a lot of rumblings that this is going to happen throughout this draft process. I mean, it's a good fit. He's a great player. I feels the need at edge for the Dallas Cowboys. I can't see him really going any other way. So now we get into number 18. The Dolphins' second pick, their second time around. Who do we think they're going to take? I think they take safety out of Alabama, Xavier McKinney. I think he's a guy that's a really good safety. He's probably the top safety off the board. And he's out of Alabama, another big-name school. We're talking about people like their Bama guys. I think it's a great pick. It's so much better. It betters their secondary, which is already incredibly good with that signing of Byron Jones. I don't know. I think the Dolphins may be a team to watch. If they get this draft right and get the draft they need, I think they can be pretty scary and do some damage. They got a good head coach. He's fiery. He can get people fired up. I like that pick. Number 19, I have the Oakland Raiders with their second pick, taking Javon Kinlaw, interior D lineman out of South Carolina. I think this is another one of those picks where his talent, he just fell. Teams didn't need him. Teams thought they could get better talent or other for one reason or another, and he just fell all the way down this far. And I think the Raiders are incredibly happy to get him. I think he's going to be a really good player for them. He's an dominant interior D lineman, and I mean, he dominated at South Carolina. Could he dominate in the NFL? We'll see. And at pick number 20, I think the Jacksonville Jaguars take Adrian Terrell, cornerback out of Clemson. I think he's a good corner. Shut down. He's probably one of the top 2 corners our top 5 corners in this draft. I think they feel this is their guy that's going to help with their secondary after getting rid of A.J. Bouye, getting rid of Jalen Ramsey. This is a team that's kind of needed of some good depth and some good players, and I think what better way than shoring up your cornerbacks and taking a nice, solid rookie that's going to be a playmaker for many years. Moving into pick number 21, I have the Philadelphia Eagles selecting Denzel Mims, wide receiver out of Baylor. I think we're seeing that the Eagles just didn't have enough receiver talent around them. I think Carson Wentz had a great year, and Carson Wentz was doing miraculous things. I just think he doesn't have receiving talent around him to hit that level he did a couple years ago when he led the Eagles to the chip. I think if they get a couple receivers and shore up their receiving corps, just as they do right here with Denzel Mims, I think he's a great receiver out of Baylor. Personally, I was kind of hoping the Vikings would get him, but in this draft, it just doesn't look like he fell that far. And he comes off the board at 21, which is a good spot for him, and the Eagles will be happy to get a good receiver. And now for my team, the Minnesota Vikings. If you guys couldn't tell, I'm a fan of the Minnesota Vikings, born and raised. I'm from South Dakota. They're right down the road. Couldn't ask for anything better. I actually think the Minnesota Vikings take Jeff Gladney, quarterback out of TCU. This is a cornerback I really like for the Vikings. I mean, last year we struggled tremendously on cornerback talent, on having that playmaker. Xavier Rhodes struggled. Guys like Trey Waynes, who got a huge contract, way overpaid if you ask me in Cincy. I think he got way too big of a contract, and the Vikings were glad not to give it out to him. I mean, he was a good corner for us, but he still struggled many times. A guy that they really kind of, I think, hurt them the most to lose was the guys like Mackenzie Alexander or Javon Curse, who were both playmakers that were really underrated for them. So I think that's why they take Jeff Gladney here. Mike Zimmer loves his corners in the first round. I mean, he's taken a 3 or 4 just being in Minnesota in general. I mean, so I think they go another cornerback here with Jeff Gladney, and I think Jeff Gladney's one of the top corners off the board, and I love this pick. I love the fit. I think he's going to be a great playmaker in Minnesota. TCU being purple, the Horned Frogs, keep them right back in the purple. Just come on down to the good old Minnesota. At pick number 23, everyone's going to hate me for this, but, I mean, the New England Patriots select their next franchise quarterback, their next 6-ring Tom Brady, their next guy, their next face of the franchise. They go with Jordan Love. They go quarterback out of Utah State. I actually like this pick. I think this is a good fit for him. I think Jordan Love needs the right pieces around him. As we saw 2 years ago, he had a fantastic year at Utah State. But this year he came back and he just had all the pieces against him. I mean, he lost something like 9 offensive starters. 4 or 5 of his offensive linemen all graduated. He lost his whole staff, his head coach. I mean, the things were just stacked against him. He just didn't have the talent around him to produce the same numbers he did. But I think with him going to the Patriots, he can get that help with Bill Belichick. He's got the quarterback whisperer. He's got everything around him that's just going for him. And I actually really like this pick. I think it's a sneaky one. I think it's a boom or bust pick. We don't see the Patriots select many first-round quarterbacks, but I think they do this time. I think this is something they can't pass on at 23. They may go edge with Yetur Gross-Matos out of Penn State. I'm not sure, but that's another pick that could see them doing. But I feel like this late into the draft, if they have a chance to draft their franchise quarterback, their guy, I don't think they pass on that. Moving forward, we have at number 24, the New Orleans Saints selecting Patrick Queen, linebacker at LSU. I think this is a really good pick. I think Patrick Queen, one of the top linebackers. I'm more of a fan of Kenneth Murray, but I think the Saints will go with Patrick Queen. Keep someone way down there in NOLA. Don't let him leave the state of Louisiana. And just keep the man back. Fill your need at linebacker. I mean, with a great linebacker, and it's just a really good fit. Moving forward, the next Minnesota Vikings pick, we have them at number 25. I see them taking edge Uter Gross-Matos out of Penn State. This is a guy I thought the Patriots may look to select with their pick, but I think I really like them taking Jordan Love this late in the draft. But I think with the Vikings looking to move to more of a 3-4, he might be a great guy to bring in. And with Everson Griffin leaving, guys like Stephen Weatherly's gone, and just with the pieces we lost and Linval and everything, I think he's a good guy to fill in and take the next step and be the next edge guy to pair right across with Daniel Hunter. I mean, Daniel Hunter works best with someone next to him, and might as well. Good pick, great talent this late. I mean, I wouldn't pass on it. And at number 26, so the Dolphins have already filled their need at safety and filled their need at quarterback. What possibly else could they need? Well, actually quite a bit. But I think right here they go their offensive tackle of the future. They pair it with their quarterback. They go Josh Jones out of Houston. I think Josh Jones is a sneaky offensive tackle out of this draft. I think he's not talked about nearly enough. I think he's going to come in and be a really good player for someone, and I really like that pick. I think for the Dolphins, they're going to have their future offensive tackle and their future quarterback playing together. I don't know if that's a good combination right there. They can grab a good running back in the second round if needed, and I think they got the pieces to be really good. They got a good defense, good linebackers. I think they're a team to watch next year. And at number 27, the Seattle Seahawks, who are in need of an edge. I actually really like them taking AJ Empaniza out of Iowa. I really like this pick. I think they're more than happy that he fell all the way down. I think they need a replacement for Clowney. That boat's kind of sailed for me. They don't want to bring him back. They've offered him the money. He's turned them down more than once. So I think they replace him. They get a great guy for 5 years, and I think AJ Empaniza is going to come in and be an instant starter and going to do a lot of damage right away in his first year. He's a guy to look out for. And at pick number 28, I have the Baltimore Ravens selecting Kenneth Murray, linebacker at Oklahoma. I really like this pick for him. I think it's a solid use of linebacker. It fills a need for him. I think Kenneth Murray's the best linebacker out of this draft. He's my favorite linebacker. I think he's going to do some damage right away. He's an Oklahoma guy, so they're always producing good players, and I am not sure how you could go wrong with this pick. And I think it fits the Baltimore Ravens. I think he fits their style. And Kenneth Murray has an incredible backstory, by the way, actually. Look into that. He's really good. It's a really good read, actually. And at pick number 29, I have actually been hearing sources connecting these people, the Tennessee Titans, who are actually in need of an interior D lineman. I think this would shock everyone. And they take Ross Blacklock out of TCU. I think this is the second or third TCU guy we see off the board this round, and I think it comes to a surprise to a lot of people, but I feel like the Titans like this pick and they're confident in his abilities. And they just say, hey, let's get the fifth-year option added onto this guy. Let's not wait till the second round. Let's just do it right now. They fill a need, and they help shore up that D lineman going into next year, filling in the spot that Gerald Casey left. And at pick number 30, the Green Bay Packers, I think they take Brandon Ayuk. I'm thinking this is one of their final years. They realize that Aaron Rodgers is kind of coming to an end. They're not sure how many miles he's got left on the tires, and I think they loaded up on talent this year, ready to make a run. So I think they take another receiver, an explosive guy, Brandon Ayuk, someone I really like coming in this draft process. Someone out of Arizona State, a great program. I just think that I like this pick. They put a guy across from Devontae Adams and gives Aaron Rodgers something to work with and just kind of slang the rock around. And I think that's a scary duo right there of Brandon Ayuk and Devontae Adams. I think they'll surprise the league, and they got them 2 running backs in the backfield. Packers-Vikings might be pretty competitive this year for the NFC North. And at pick number 31, I have the San Francisco 49ers selecting Jalen Johnson, cornerback out of Utah. I really like this pick. I think they took their wide receiver, so they filled that need right away. And they ended up falling to Jalen Johnson late in the first. I think he's a top quarterback. I think he's highly underrated. He gets talked about a lot. He had a great combine, and I think this is a good fit for him. I think it fills their need at corner that was exposed badly, and when NFC champion or the Super Bowl when Sherman just wasn't fast enough. He couldn't keep up. So I think they go Jalen Johnson out of Utah, help shore up those cornerbacks, and just put that cornerback group from good to great. And finally, the final pick of the first round, number 32 overall. I think the Chiefs select running back DeAndre Swift out of Georgia. I think they have an offense that they don't see many holes in. They got interior offensive line holes, but I think they'll patch them later rounds and just other little things. I think they'll patch everything later rounds. I think they believe they can get who they want and in the quarterback room late in the second. I don't know if their running backs will be there that they want, and I think this is the time they get their cream of the crop, they get their running back choice. I think they go here. I think we've seen how dominant their offense can be with wide receivers and when they had Kareem Hunt. But what happened to Kareem Hunt happened with Kareem Hunt. We don't talk about that. But now's their final chance, or now's their chance to get their running back. And when we saw what the coach could do with LaShawn McCoy back in the day, Eric Reed could do with LaShawn McCoy way back in the day. We can see what happens. This could be interesting. This could be really good for them. So now we're going to break down some Minnesota Vikings offseason moves and just kind of talk predictions and Vikings into the free agency next week, or going into next season. First, I think a big surprise that I've kind of mentioned throughout this video, I think the Dolphins will surprise a lot of people. I think Tua's tired of everyone doubting him because of his injury concerns and all that. So I think he comes out and he just plays ball to the wall. I think he makes a lot of plays for the Miami Dolphins. I think he makes them look good. I think if they get a good offensive line around him and can keep him protected, he can be a quarterback for many years to come. I think if they can get a good receiver later in the rounds, or maybe pick up a good receiver through trade, or pick up a guy like Trent Williams through trade, I really like the Dolphins going into next season. I think they can be a surprise team. Surprise a lot of them. That division is kind of up in the air right now. The Patriots don't have a quarterback. They're unsure. Their team's kind of falling apart. And the Bills, I think the Bills are probably the front runner of talent-wise team and playoff potential, playoff-ready team. I think you got the Dolphins, who can make a shot, and then you got the Titans, who no one really knows. No one really knows that the Titans are going to be the same Titans that have one good year and suck. Are Tannehill's really the answer? We'll see. I think that division's really up in the air. I think we could see it like a 10-6, 9-7, 8-8, and 7-9 or something like that. Like really tight division, and every team splits a win in their division games, and I don't know if they have one really stud. I think the Patriots may miss the playoffs next year, and that is a perfect opportunity for people like I think the Bills and the Dolphins both slide in there. But now talking Vikings, some of the things that we signed Michael Pierce, I like that signing. It reminds me a lot of the signing of Linval Joseph from the Giants and bringing a big guy, big run stopper over. We're just filling the need we had for Linval Joseph leaving. I just don't think I think Lindell, I really love the player. He's one of my favorite players on the Minnesota Vikings for many years. But I think trading him or releasing him to save the cap space, I don't think he was worth the money we were supposed to give him. And I think we used that money in a good replacement for Michael Pierce. He got him for a couple years. I'm really excited to see what he can do for the Minnesota Vikings. Other than that, Stephon Diggs trade, that was a big trade, but I don't know how to feel about that. I don't like how people are targeting Stephon Diggs. I don't know why this breakup has to be so ugly. It seems like there's no other way. It just seems like Stephon Diggs is pushing a lot of hate on the Minnesota Vikings fans, but Minnesota Vikings fans also aren't handling it the best way. They're kind of giving it back to him, saying he's not as good as he is, saying blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I think my view on it is I hope he does well. I hope the Bills do well. I'm excited to see what him and Josh Allen can do. I mean, you got a deep ball receiver to a deep ball quarterback. I'm excited to see what they do. They're kind of gonna. I think they're gonna mess things up. I think it'll be a lot of throw it and Stephon Diggs makes a play. That's kind of what he did. He couldn't really make the easy catches. He could make a crazy jump over 3 or 4 people, make a catch, but he may drop just a simple slant route. But I really like that fit, and the other things with the Minnesota Vikings, I still don't understand what we're going to do with our offensive linemen. We didn't do anything in free agents. We didn't bring anyone in, really, or any day one starters that we know of. I think it depends. I think this draft, we may trade up. If Becton falls past 15, I think we trade up, take him. Or I think if we don't feel confident with the offensive line talent we have after the first or second, say there's a run off at the tackles late first, and we just don't feel confident with a player for the pick, the quality of a player for the pick when we can get best player available. And I mean, Rick doesn't have a very good tendency of drafting first-round offensive linemen. So, I mean, I could really see us just not and just trading for Trent Williams. He's a big name we're talking about. Guys we can target in the second round. I think we may, depending on what happens with Anthony Harris, target Antoine Winfield Jr., go to get him, and just kind of get a younger safety, just getting rid of Anthony Harris to free up some cap. Other things I can see us do. I mean, another thing I was talking about, OBJ trade. We were going to give a second and a fifth. And then there were still Minnesota Vikings fans that was out here saying no. So you're telling me, yeah, however, Odell Beckham may be a head case. But you got to realize, I know Colin Cowherd just mentioned this many times, and I'm sure many others probably have, but he wasn't a head case for his first couple of years in New York. And then everything around him went to poo. They got rid of Tomlin, and they got rid of certain pieces, and it didn't have a normal consistency. So then he didn't have that thing, and so he acted out. And then all of a sudden got traded to Browns, another organization who didn't have major structure, and just kind of, it wasn't the best situation for him. It felt kind of too bizarre, and I don't know if he could handle it. But I think if he goes to Minnesota, we see a lot of guys. Like, if we look at like Sheldon Richardson, he had some trauma, or he had some things coming following him. So the Vikings were able to get him on a pretty cheap deal, and once we got him, we didn't have any problems with him, and he ended up being a baller and balling out and getting a big contract, coincidentally, for the Cleveland Browns. But I don't understand how a fan could say they don't want to trade a second and a fifth for a top 15 receiver when we gave up, or when we got a first and a fourth for Stephon Diggs, who's also a top 15 receiver. But if we have to give less to get a receiver that's just as good talent-wise, but just didn't produce as much, but I just don't think you can put that all on him. I think the offense he was in last year was kind of a struggle offense. I think they didn't put Mayfield in the best situation, and I feel Mayfield was too pressured and tried to force Odell the ball too much, and Odell kept complaining because he wasn't getting the throws he needed or blah, blah, blah. So I think having him come to Minnesota to a quiet environment and just hard working, earn your bread, a grind and repeat. I really like it. I honestly enjoy that trade. You're not getting rid of much. Like, however, you're getting rid of picks, a couple picks, but I mean, it's a top line or wide receiver. You're not going to draft a wide receiver with that talent in the third round. Past maybe one or two that come every 2 or 3 years. So I don't have a problem with that trade. Other guys I see the Vikings targeting is in the second, as I already talked with the Cardinals, guys like Ariza Cleveland. I think he's a really good off-his tackle, and I think he's got first-round talent, but I just think he's going to fall to the second. I think too many teams are worried about drafting offensive linemen in the first, and so I think he'll fall. And I'm hoping maybe the Vikings can trade up, select him early in the second, or just kind of, I don't know, go away from him, taking Antoine Winfield Jr. Another guys we're looking at is Kentrell Fuller or Fulton from LSU. I think he's a good cornerback that's coming out, and I think if we can snag him late first, I would be okay with that if we take him at 22 or 25. But I'd probably say the two guys I'm really kind of hoping we take or is in like an edge rusher, if we get a good edge that falls that far, a good offensive tackle who's maybe down there if they possibly Andrew Thomas or Becton or one of the top guys fall. I wouldn't even mind if they take Josh Jones at that pick. Or if they went with the receivers like Jalen Reagor is a name that I've really heard us talking about. I've heard Denzel Mims, rumors of Brandon Ayuk, but I don't really like them. I think guys later, we're looking at NDSU tight end. I don't remember his name for sure, but I know there's an NDSU tight end we're looking at. We're looking Tyler Johnson from Minnesota. That's a good pick to look at. I think he's an underrated receiver. I think that's why we'll end up seeing the Vikings pass on a receiver in the first round. I think they, because of how deep this receiver class is, they feel they can get a good enough pick in either the second or early third, late third, that has just as much potential. I don't know if they like some of the receivers that will be there at their picks at 22 or 25. I don't think they believe they're first-round talents. So I think they wait, and I think they take a day 2 guy, and they're confident with what they go with, or they make a trade for a receiver, some of the receivers that may be available. And I really think they know what's going on with that, and I enjoy what they're doing. Paying Dalvin Cook. That's another thing we got to talk about is, do we pay Dalvin Cook however much money he asks for? Should we? No. Will we? Probably. The Vikings just have a history of paying running backs. I mean, AP, we traded everything for Herschel Walker. I mean, we paid AP a lot of money constantly. I mean, yeah. So I just see we do it. I think we do it again. I think this year's a boom or bust year for a few guys. I think that if we struggle this year, we lose Zimmer and Kubiak takes over as head coach. I think when Kubiak takes over, if they don't win something, I think after Kirk's done, Kubiak's gone. I think we should see a rebuild for the Vikings if they don't win anything in the next 3 or 4 years. Which is not fun to say being a Vikings fan, but I mean, everyone's on contracts kind of up around the same time, up in a couple years, and I just think it runs into point if they can't win with the guys they have, why keep going, you know? Like, why every year try to be 8-8 when you could do a rebuild and stock up on picks or something and then make a push at going to the Super Bowl? Why wait and just kind of still like, hey, we'll go 8-8 or 10-6 and we'll make the playoffs, but we'll get blown out in the second round every year. No one really wants that. However, I don't know. Speaking of Kirk Cousins, we extended him, brought him back for a couple more seasons, freed up a cap space, which was really helpful for us, and I don't think that's talked about enough. I don't think people talk about how much of a cap relief that was. And I think that's... And people still hate on the contract, but he's not even a top 5 paid quarterback in the league. Like, he's a great, talented quarterback for the money we're giving him. I I think even since we brought him in, he's been exactly what he has been. Like, I don't think it's not like he was hyping himself up saying, "Oh, I'm going to be the next Tom Brady," or "I am the best quarterback in the NFL." I think he just knew his value. That was the money he was going to get. But he's a quarterback that may not win you games. He may not that Pat Mahomes talent level where he's going to just go out and make you on a comeback and win you a football game when being down 24 against the Texans. And see, I don't know if Kirk Cousins is the type of quarterback to do that, but I know Kirk Cousins is the type of quarterback that's not going to lose you a game. He's not going to be afraid to take a shot late. He's not going to be afraid to do that. But he's not going to be dumb with it. He's going to do everything conservative. He'll take a sack, but he'll also take a sack instead of throwing into double coverage and throwing a pick. So it's give or take. But the way I look at it, I think that he is just the perfect quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. I think that throughout the league, we've seen many different quarterbacks come through Minnesota Vikings. We've seen guys like, rest in peace, Forrest Jackson, guys like Joe Webb, Christian Ponder, guys like McNabb. We had Freeman for a little bit. Favre came through. Those were some good years. Even back before then, we had Cunningham. We had Culpepper, Moon for a year or two. I don't know if we've had our quarterback. We had Sean Hill, Teddy Bridgewater, Sam Bradford for a year, Case Keenum. I mean, he's by far the most talented quarterback, one of the most talented quarterbacks besides maybe Franz Harkington to ever play for Minnesota Vikings. And maybe Brett Favre, but I think he was still better than Brett Favre was that year. I'm kind of rewatching some of them tapes, and I think Brett Favre benefited a lot on AP. I think with AP being there, it was able to take some of the pressure off him. But that's just what a normal offense should do. That's what a good offense will work. But I just think Kirk Cousins, a quarterback that's not going to win a lot of primetime games. The Minnesota Vikings, as an organization, isn't very good at winning primetime football games. We have a tendency to choke. Kirk Cousins, mediocre quarterback. Minnesota Vikings are always pretty, Kirk Cousins will always be a top-rated quarterback. He'll always have the good stats, the good look. He'll look good on paper. But his teams will always go 8-8 to 10-6. He'll never have that 13-3, that 12-4, that 14-2 season. But he'll go 10-6. And it's nothing bad. I just think that's the exact same way the Minnesota Vikings are. Maybe we'll have a crazy 15-1 or 14-2 or something crazy like that. Mostly we're just 10-6 or 9-7, 8-8. We're just mediocre. I mean, but I think if anyone's going to get it done in Minnesota, I think somehow Kirk Cousins does it. I think you could go on a crazy playoff run, but just like Kirk Cousins is one of them quarterbacks. He's either extremely hot or extremely cold. There's no in between. There's no guessing which one he's going to be. He'll have a week, like we saw, he'll have a couple of weeks, like in October. He had a run of about a month where he's just lights out, tossing dimes. Of course, that was after Stephon Diggs and all that junk. But no, after that, he played lights out for a little bit, and then he got a little shady towards the end, and we kind of saw some of that true color flow back into him. But I think he's going to run, and I think he can be a surprise team. Everyone likes to look at the Niners game, but I feel like the Niners, just as the Bears, they have the positions we don't, or where they're great at or where we struggle. Both the Niners and the Bears have really good our defensive line. The Vikings probably one of their worst positions on their offensive line, and when you have Kirk Cousins, someone who's not very mobile, someone who can't really get out of the pocket and go, I think, and that can cause issues. And when you don't have more than 30 seconds or more than 5 seconds to throw a ball, receivers can't really create separation. So I think that's why we saw Kirk struggle, or we keep seeing Kirk struggle against the Bears, or we see him struggle against the Niners or teams like that. But I think I'm really excited to see what the Vikings come into next season with. I'm excited to see some of the things that happen tonight on draft day. I'm so excited. This new fantasy draft is going to be kind of cool. It's going to be different. But personally, I just feel like there's going to be a ton of things go wrong. Things just aren't going to go right and all that. But I really think that this is going to be fun. I think there's going to be a lot of guys that surprise people. I think Jalen Hurts is another guy that's going to be a late pick, but he can do some damage. The center out of Michigan, I really like him coming in here. There's some receivers that are second-round talent. I'm a big Michigan guy too, but looking at Peoples-Jones, I think his combine was insane. You got to look at some of that. He's going to be a DK Metcalf type player. He's a combine beast, but there's going to be a lot of questions. Can he convert it? I think he does. I think there's a few late-round quarterbacks that come off the board who are good talent, like good people. I think Bryce Perkins is someone to watch, either UDA or late, like 7th, 6th round pick. He's a quarterback out of Virginia. I watched a few games of this guy, just kind of looking around, seeing what's up with late round picks. And I think he's the guy that I've watched that I was like, wow, he's going to be a good quarterback. Other guys like Anthony Gordon. I've watched a couple tapes on Anthony Gordon, and I think he's a quarterback from the Washington State Cougars. He's a late round predicted or a mid round predicted, and I think he's got a lot of talent. I think if he may sneak onto an NFL roster, and he may surprise a lot of people. He may be one of them people that make the practice squad, then make the roster, and then in a couple years we see him maybe backing up a couple quarterbacks or gets in a shot and doing really well. And the final guy that I think should have a chance to make the playoff or the NFL, but I don't really see him. I think he's way a sleeper pick and just is not getting the recognition he deserves. But it's Tyler Huntley, quarterback out of Utah. I watched one game with this kid, and I was actually really impressed with how he played, how he held himself. I just thought he was really a good quarterback, and I think he's got a shot. I think he'll be a solid backup. He'll be a good practice squad player. I mean, I don't know if he's an NFL starter. I don't think he's a first-round talent at all. I don't think he's a day 2 talent. But looking at UDA, I think he can shock some people. So, thank you guys for coming to my first podcast ever of podcasting with the Hawg. That was my mock draft, my first round. Thank you guys, and stay partying, crazy people.